Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. We're here at the Star in Toronto, and we're here with Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada, who's come in to meet with the Star's editorial board, senior reporters and editors, as part of a series of meetings that we plan to have with all the federal party leaders, if they indeed agree to come in, on issues relating to the current election campaign. So welcome, and thank you for taking the time to come in.
I appreciate that. I appreciate this opportunity, and I hope that all the leaders will come here and have that discussion with you. It's too important for Canadians. They need to have all the point of view for this election. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks so much. So traditionally what we've done is we've invited our guests to take a few minutes, not too long, just to set the table, tell us what you think the issues are, what we should be thinking about, and then we'll have a discussion, and we'll go around the room. We'll have a freewheeling discussion. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll be very short. First of all, I'm Maxime Bernier, and we created the People's Party of Canada a year ago, based on principles and individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And all our policies are in line with these four principles. I like to say that we are doing politics differently because we don't try to please everybody. We know that if we try to please everybody, we'll end up pleasing nobody. So we have strong and bold policies that we think are very important for the future of this country, for a more freer and a more prosperous country with a limited government in Ottawa that will respect the Constitution and respect the taxpayers. So that being said, it is why we want to have a discussion in this country about issues that maybe other political parties don't want to. Speaking about balancing the budget in 2 years, we're the only one, and I think it's important. Speaking about having a discussion on immigration, it is important. Speaking about abolishing corporate welfare to save money to be able to balance the budget. And also the cartel in milk, dairy, and poultry. If you want to help the poor and Canadian families, you need to abolish that. That's unfair. So all these policies are not discussed by other political leaders, but are important for this country. So we like what we're doing, and now we are campaigning all across the country, and I'm pleased that we are a very national political party with organization all across the country, and also with candidates all across the country. So that's the beginning of a new way to do politics in Canada, and we'll see what will happen. So I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I'm ready to answer your questions.
Sure, thanks very much. Okay, just to plunge in on some news that's sort of come up in the last 24 hours. I know that you object to being associated with people that are on the quote-unquote far right. Yeah. I've heard you on this many times, but it keeps on happening. And latest thing is that it turns out that among the 250 original signatures were these people from the Soldiers of Odin, the Pegida, which is a far-right group, another group, 3 of these far-right individuals. You keep saying that there's no room, I've heard you say, there's no room in the People's Party for extreme far-right views, but it keeps happening and people keep on showing up associated with the party. There seems to be, for a lot of people, there's a pattern here. And why is that happening? What is it about your party that seems to attract these people, even if, as you say, you don't want them?
And first of all, about these people, that's not news for me. That's old news because that happened a month ago. And I don't know why the media are still speaking about that, because we know we expelled that person when we knew his past a month ago. And so I won't call that fake news, but I will call that old news for sure. And so yeah, we have people from different faith, from different backgrounds, from different ethnicity in our party, and I'm proud of that. We have Muslims that are with us. We have Christian and Jewish people. So and people who are with us share our values, our Canadian values about diversity and pluralism. So we deal with that a couple of weeks ago, and that's a pass. the most important, if you look at our candidates and the people who are in our party, we have 41,000 members all across the country that help us to build this party. And I'm saying, the people who had views like that, they're not welcome, and we prove it in the past. And so that's why, I'm pretty confident that people will look at our candidates. And we are the only political party who did a full background check on our candidates and also a check on their social media. So some of these people did things in the US, and when you do the background check, you don't have access to what happened in the US. So that's why, as soon as we knew that a couple of weeks ago, we deal with it. And so I'm very happy with the people that are supporting our party and supporting our values.
So could you guarantee now then there won't be any surprises along this line among any of your current candidates?
Yeah, all our candidates has been approved by the party. We had an interview with them. We did the background check, and you can look at all our candidates, and they share our values, and I'm very pleased with that. And that's what we want as a political party.
Right. Now, I'll tell you what. Something that surprises me is, we followed your bid for the Conservative Party leadership. Well, it's only a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And you were talking about all kinds of things then. Obviously, supply management, corporate subsidies, a different approach really on the economic front. And you were billed as a libertarian, which is usually the label that came up.
On the economy, yeah.
That was really what. And, I've just gone back in the last, trying to refresh my memory in the last day. And very seldom did you mention these identity issues. And even in the letter when you resigned from the party, and it was only in August of last year, so we're not talking a long time ago. I read it again, read it twice. It's about 26 paragraphs, and only one paragraph mentions the identity issues. It's all about libertarian economics, it's about subsidy. But somehow, in the past 13 months, you went from somebody who was focusing on the economy, on issues of the balance between taxes and so forth, into somebody who has put identity issues in the very front of your shop window. In fact, when you look at the platform, the top issue is veterans, and then there are three issues, refugees, immigration, and multiculturalism. Anybody reading the platform is going to, you only have to get quite deep down into the list before you get into things like supply management. And so somehow you've turned the things upside down, it seems to me, or at least you've taken a different approach, and you've put these identity issues way up at the top, and that seems to be the thing that I don't know why, because I can only guess, and I don't want to read your mind, but why have you turned yourself from a libertarian on the economic front into really somebody who is pushing these identity issues and values issues? Is it simply because you think that's where the votes are?
First of all, I think, yes, you're right on the economy. You can call me a libertarian on the economy. Less government, lower taxes, and a balanced budget, and a bold tax reform. Yes, I spoke about that during the leadership camp, during my run for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada 3 years ago. But also I spoke about immigration. The focus was on Kelly Leach at that time. If you look at my platform for the leadership, I did speak about the immigration at that time, and Kelly Leach had another position. But people are telling me, Maxime, it's new for you. After 13 years in politics, it's the first time that you're speaking about immigration and identity and our identity as Canadian. Yes, they're right. I was not an immigration minister under Stephen Harper government. I was a minister for industry minister and for small business. That was not my role to speak about immigration, and so that's why I didn't speak about immigration when I was a cabinet member. But after that, on my platform, I had a discussion about it, and right now, yes, I think it's important. I think it's important to have that discussion. There's nothing taboo about about that to have a discussion about immigration. And when you look at the poll, 49% of Canadians want fewer immigrants. So we're not radical when we're asking for fewer immigrants. People who are radicals are people who want more immigrants. Only 6% of Canadians want more immigrants. So that's important to have that discussion. And yes, it's in line with our principle. You know, the four principle of our party, it's individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect. And yes, we respect every religions, we respect Canadians, we respect our diversity. But we think that more and more diversity is not good for the country. Like Justin Trudeau said, you know, diversity is our strength. We don't believe in that. What unites us, it is our strength, and we must work on that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important, yes, because Canadians are concerned about that. And we're not anti-immigration, we're not for mass immigration, and for us mass immigration is 350,000 immigrants a year. After 3 years, you'll have 1 million people, that's the population of Nova Scotia, and at 350,000 a year per capita, our country will receive more immigrants than any other Western countries. At 150,000 a year per capita will be the same as the US and all the other European countries. So that's not radical. We want to have more economic immigrants because our immigration policy must be there to fulfill our economic needs. And so let's have that discussion, and I'm ready for having that discussion.
Sure. Well, there's so many ways to go here. I mean, okay. Immigration. Okay, well, let's just drill down into that a little bit.
Yeah.
I suppose, well, you know, certainly one can debate numbers, you know, and debate whether or not 350,000 is a big enough number. But you don't have to be some kind of wacky leftist, you know, to look at the Canadian economy, to look at the demographic trends, and to conclude that substantial immigration is good for the economy, has been good for the economy. You look at things like the Conference Board of Canada famously brings out study after study demonstrating and arguing that if we don't want to face a demographic crisis down the line, we need to have substantial amounts of immigration. You have the OECD coming out and praising the way Canada's been handling this. You have numbers coming out over the summer that showed that recent immigrants are finding jobs, that they're in fact finding jobs they have a lower unemployment rate than other Canadians. All kinds of indications that, values aside, immigration at pretty substantial levels in the 300,000 range is something that Canada needs for its long-term future, for the obvious demographic reasons. Why would you, as an economist, and certainly as a person with an economic background, argue with a pretty heavy consensus of economic analysts of this issue, and basically reject their views on this? I just simply don't understand it from purely just an economic point of view, leaving aside the values.
Yeah, first of all, the most important, if we want Canadians to have more babies, and I think that's important for our demographic, like you said, taxes are important. There's a cost when you're having a child. There's a cost of that. So we have a tax platform that will give more money in the Canadian pockets, and they will save $35 billion a year with our tax reform. So that's huge. You need to put that in context also. But like I said, right now on 310, I think it's the number of this year, 310,000, that's the number of this year, or 20, something like that. Only 26% of them are economic immigrants. And maybe you can argue that no, the number from the government is 55%. And both are right. I'm right and they're right. So when I'm saying 26% of our immigrants are economic immigrants right now, and the government is saying 55%, it's because they are taking into account the immediate family of that skilled worker that is coming to Canada. And I'm just counting the skilled worker, but yes, that person will have the right to come with their immediate family. But actually, the skilled worker is coming here because we need that skill and these kind of people to help for the private sector. So let's have more of them, and increasing the ratio at 50% instead of 26%. So that will help. So 50% of 150,000 a year, it's about the same at 26% and 310,000 a year. So let's have more economic immigrants. And also don't forget that in the numbers you have refugees. Canada receive absolute number more refugees than the US, 10 times bigger than us. It's not sustainable. So yes, in the number of 310 you have a lot of refugees, and we want to cut that. We want to be sure that people respect our borders. We want to have a fence at the Roxham Road. We want to end these 45,000 illegal migrants that are crossing our border. We want that to stop, and we want to welcome them, but they will have to cross our border at the official port of entry. So let's have fewer refugees. That's a cost for the society, and fewer. Actually, the cost of these 45,000 a year, it's about $350 million a year. So we need to be sure that we will help the real refugees, the ones that are waiting in a camp where their life is in danger, not the person that is coming from the state of New York. Their life is not in danger. But I understand that they're coming from a better future. But we cannot save the world. We cannot save the world. It's not sustainable. So let's help the real refugees, having fewer refugees and helping the real one, the minority that are persecuted in another country. So that's the goal. That's Canadians are generous for that, but not for helping these people to cross illegally our borders. So in the numbers, you have a lot of refugees, and for us, we'll have fewer refugees. And I think that's important, but more economic immigrants. And I understand that some business organizations have other point of view of that. I respect that. But also we must be sure, that's a cost for Ontario. All these people are coming here in Toronto, and look at the cost for the Ontario government and the city of Toronto. Mm-hmm. And we want them to be part of this society. And if they're coming here and living in a ghetto, that's not what Canada, that's not our country.
But where are these ghettos? I don't get it. I mean, we read about Europe, and they have all this, because of the geography.
Yeah.
They have, a huge influx of illegal refugees, people who are just fleeing bad conditions in the Middle East and Africa and whatnot. Yeah. Call them whatever you want.
Yeah.
They may not be official refugees, but they're newcomers who are coming.
Migrants.
And, we've seen tons of publicity in various countries about social problems, and they have their own approach, they have their own history.
Yeah.
In France and other countries, you hear about these ghettos. And yet, in Canada, when you talk about ghettos, where are these ghettos? We live here in Toronto.
Yeah.
I don't see a big problem with immigrants and migrants and being ghettoized. What I see, we live down here. These big fancy new buildings that are being built are full of people who are brown and black and Asian and so forth, working in all kinds of finance and IT. They're completely normalized Canadians. They're not ghettoized. I don't see where it is.
But that's we don't want that. We don't want. I was in France.
So you agree it doesn't exist?
No, I agree that in some part, if you're coming from China, and before when we had, I'll give you an example. We have a point system, and if you speak English or French, you had some points. It's easier for that person to integrate our society when they speak the language.
Sure.
But right now, it's not the case anymore. You can be not speaking any of our two official languages and be Canadians. That's new from the Trudeau government. They changed the point system. So it's harder for you to integrate our society if you don't speak the language. We don't want to have these kind of ghettos like they're having in Europe. That's why we want to have the discussion right now. That's why it's time to have the discussion, because we love this country and we want this country to be like that. And actually, I ask you to look at the video when I did my announcement on immigration. I was in Mississauga. The room was full of new Canadians from Indian origin, from African origin, from different faith, Muslim. They were all here, and they agree with our policy because they came here on the rules. And now there's no such thing of I'm exaggerating about the point system. It's still there, but it's not the same. We are opening our borders to try to save the world, and we cannot. That's why we are against the migration compact from the UN. Migration, it's not a normality. These people must be able to stay in their country if it's safe and secure. We must help this country to be a safe and secure country. That's why, migration, it is not normal, and being a Canadian, it is not a right, it's a privilege. And when I did this announcement, you can ask the different ethnic communities that are in favor, because I'm looking at them as Canadians. I'm not doing politics like Justin Trudeau and Andrew Scheer, pandering to different ethnic group. I'm not. For me, they're Canadians. I won't call a Chinese Canadian or Hindu Canadian. They are Canadian first, and that's what they like from it. They came here to be Canadians, to share our values, and that's why we don't pander to them. We are looking at them as Canadians, and our policies for all Canadians. And I think people appreciate that. So no pandering, and our immigration policy is very popular with these people. And my candidates in Ontario and all across the country are coming from different faith and ethnicity, and that's great. But they want this country to be like that in 25 years. They don't want a no-go zone like they have in France, that nobody can go there because it's too dangerous. Right. They want our people to share our values. Individual freedom, equality between men and women, the separation with the state and religion. You have a political party here in Ontario that want to be an official political party and promote the Sharia law. It's not our country. Sharia law, it's not part of our country. So, but it's not an official. I agree with you. It's not an official party in Ontario. But there's people who are pushing for that. That's not Canadian values. So they know in Canada that there's a huge separation between the state and religion. And so people who came here, they came here to share our values, to share the Canadian values, to have more freedom. And that's what we want. That's why we need to have a face-to-face interview with them. That's why we need to have a discussion about values.
Okay, we'll come back to that. I've been asked to remind everybody that we're here at the Star with the leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier, talking about issues in the campaign. And I gather that there's a question from a reader, Joanna?
This is from a reader. What is the party's proposed plan to make housing affordable for the millennial generation for big cities such as Toronto and Vancouver?
Immigration is a solution. If you have fewer immigrants, 46% of our immigrants are coming to big cities like Toronto, and that's giving pressure on the prices of houses. So immigration will be a solution. Fewer immigrants, you'll have the pressure on the market, house market will be lower. So that's a solution. The other thing is lower taxes. We want to give them more of their money. We don't. You'll be able to do what you do with your money, what you want to do with your money, if you have more of your own money in your pockets. Like I said, our tax, no more capital gains tax in this country, 2 tax rate. We will also the life more affordable. We're the only party to speak about abolishing the cartel in milk, dairy, and poultry, and a Canadian family will save $400 a year. That's concrete policy that will help them to have more money by abolishing the cartel in supply management, by having a real tax reform, not giving tax credit for that or that. It's unfair. It's unfair, this little tax credit. If you, like Andrew Scheer is doing right now, you want to, the bill of electricity is very high in Ontario, and he's giving a tax credit for that. But if you don't own a house, you won't have that tax credit. So it's unfair. Let's give people more of their own money by having a tax reform that will be fair for everybody. So that will help. Abolishing the supply management, immigration, and also our tax reform. They will have more money, they will be able to buy a house. It will be easier for them to be able to buy a house.
Okay. Who wants to jump in?
I will.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Bernier. I'm Diane Reinhardt. I'm on the editorial board. I wanted to talk to you about climate change.
Yeah.
So there's a worldwide consensus of scientists who say that climate change is real and it's caused by greenhouse gas emissions. And in your platform, you deny that. So can you explain that position?
I don't deny that climate change is real. I'm not a climate denier. Yes, the climate is always changing, and it's a fact. It's a fact. What I'm saying is there's no climate emergency. There's no climate crisis. And I don't want us to build policies on sentiment and panic. So for us, people are asking to change our way of life and to impose a tax on carbon. And I'm not hypocrite like Justin Trudeau and Andrew Scheer. If you believe in climate change and with their program, you must vote for Elizabeth May. Elizabeth May said, and the UN also, that you need to impose a tax of $300 a ton to be sure for the federal government to achieve the Paris Accord targets. Right now, the Trudeau government, it's a tax on carbon of $50 a ton. They won't be able to achieve the Paris Accord target. So they're lying to the population. Justin Trudeau is lying when he's crossing the country and saying, I will achieve my Paris Accord target. All the experts, the UN experts are saying he won't. And same thing for Andrew Scheer. He said, I want to impose a carbon tax, but I will impose more regulation on businesses and I will impose a tax on the big emitters. That's the same. So they won't be able to achieve the Paris Accord and they won't save the planet because, as you know, our emission, it's only 1.8% of the global emission. So I'm telling the reality to Canadians. If you want to fight climate change, your provincial government can do that. And in Quebec, actually, the carbon tax won't apply in Quebec because they have a cap and trade system. The environment is a shared jurisdiction with provinces, and I respect the Constitution, and I'll let provinces deal with that. But for us, we won't sign the Paris Accord. We won't impose a carbon tax. We won't impose more regulation on businesses because we think that there's no climate crisis emergency right now. And it's a little bit bad that people are saying to the youth of today that if we don't do anything in 20 years or 15 years, that will be the end of the world. That's not responsible. And you know, every 10 or 20 years, the radical environmentalists are saying that. People know that, you know, there's a solution for the climate. And what I'm saying, it's the human activity. Human activity on this planet, it is not the main reason why the climate is changing. It can be one reason, but not the main one. And so that's a huge difference with us. That's the difference with us and the other political parties. So yeah, CO2, it's a gas that it's not pollution. First of all, it's not pollution. It's very important, and it's a gas for life. It's a food for plants. And so, to what I'm saying that the human activity on this planet and the CO2, it is not the main reason why we have climate change. And a lot of scientists are saying, like Patrick Moore, former co-founder of Greenpeace, and a lot of scientists are saying there's other factors like the ocean, like the sun, like the volcanoes. And so all the studies are always focused on the CO2. But I hope that the scientists will do more studies, and it's all based on data and computer. So, you know, it's depends on what you're putting in your computer for having the data at the end. So I want us to base our policies not on fear, not on panics, but not to trying to change our way of life with imposing. And we know that a carbon tax at the end won't change anything because as an economist, if you tax more at the pump, Canadians won't change their behavior. They won't, because there's no alternative that are competitive to the fossil fuel. There's no alternative. So when you increase the price at the pump, people won't change their behavior. It's only we're only grabbing more money from Canadians. So first of all, the others are not telling the truth that they will achieve the Paris Accord, Scheer and Justin Trudeau. And at the end, if you impose a tax on carbon, people won't change their behavior at the end. So that's not the solution.
Did you watch Greta Thunberg's statement at the United Nations yesterday? And
I
what
did.
What did you think of it?
You know, she asking her, I want you to panic, I want you to feel my fears, and I think it's not responsible. And she's saying to our kids today, and a lot of them are anxious because of that. If you don't do anything in 5 years, it will be the end of. It's not responsible. It will be the end of the world. And I don't. I will always fight for that. I will always fight against that. Against that kind of speech, and it is not. We need to build public policies on science, on reason, on facts, and not on fear and panics. And they're asking us, and they don't want us to have a discussion because it's the climate emergency. You cannot debate. Climate emergency, don't debate, and these are the solutions. We need to debate, and that's why I think it's important. Well, actually, 30% of Canadians are saying, we need to debate. There's no climate emergency, and I think the more we speak about it, people understand on the street what is the emergency. We have tornadoes. We always had tornadoes. We have flooding. We always had that, and we will in the future. So let's have a discussion about that emergency.
What? Do you want to go back? Yeah.
Sure. Ms. Bernier, when we're talking about Greta Thunberg,
Yeah.
she's a 16-year-old
Yeah.
girl with
Yeah.
autism.
Yeah.
And you sent out an 8-part Twitter
Yeah.
series
Yeah.
that calls her deeply disturbed, clearly mentally unstable, a threat to our prosperity and civilization. This is a child. What does that say about you that you would send out a note and ask people to attack her, to join you in those attacks?
No, first of all, I tweeted 2 days after that, and I said she's a courageous girl. But actually, all her health, her and her parents and people around her are speaking about that. That was not new. That was public, and so. But I said after that, 2 days after it, that she's a courageous girl because she's out there and she's speaking about something that she thinks is very important for her. But on the facts, I don't agree with what she's saying, and so that's why I said we must always be able to have a discussion about that. And some people are afraid to have that discussion because it's coming from a 16 years old girl. But we must have that discussion. And yes, when I tweeted that, 2 days after that, I said, let's have a discussion about her facts. And other people are bringing in the discussion her health. And I did that, and that was a mistake.
Kathy? I think actually we have a reader question, if you don't mind.
Sure,
We can just go there first. And then, sorry, Kathy, and then we'll go to Kathy.
This is from Michael. What is your stance on changing the first past the post voting system? Do you or will you have a policy on electoral reform?
No, because as you know, we have a lot of reforms to do, bold reform. We won't have time to have the discussion, and our system is not the best one, but it is not the worst one. And I think that we can elect our candidates under that system. So for us, no electoral reform.
Kathy?
Hi, my name is Kathy English. I'm the public editor. I couldn't help noticing that right off the bat here, you raised the term, you used a word that I call the F word, fake news. You said you wouldn't refer to the news reports as fake news, but as old news. 3 weeks ago, your Ontario organizer took to Twitter to call me a liar and the Toronto Star fake news. He subsequently apologized, to his credit. But we all know that south of the border, this demonization of the media has been effective in some quarters, but it's also led to great danger for journalists and threats to press freedom. Where do you stand on this issue of demonizing the media, and how are you going to handle this with your party members?
But, we want to have a discussion on facts, and I'm very pleased that our candidate had a change his position about you. I think that was the thing to do. So, and I'm very pleased that he acknowledged that, or she acknowledged that. I don't know. Okay. So that being said, the most important is to have a discussion. I'm not doing I'm doing politics differently. But I'm a Canadian, and I think I'm doing politics like other politicians in this country. And yes, I will call media. I did it in the past if they're saying something that is not true, and I did it. I did an interview, I think, with Wesley at the CBC, and she said that she was doing a story about us having money from the U.S. and from the Coke think tank or something like that. And that wasn't true. We are following the legislation. There's no proof about that. And after that, yes, I tweeted about that. And yes, I told her that it was not good news, and it wasn't news anymore, because we are raising money, and our average donors is $200, and we are following Canadian legislation. And I don't know the Koch brothers, and so she raised that at the CBC at that, and that was not fair. But if it happened in the future, I'll do the same thing. But I respect the press, and I want the press to be independent, and that's why we're against the fund for the press. I think the press must be independent from the government, not dependent from the government. And yes, we will cut I think it's $350 million, the new fund. I don't remember the number, but we'll cut that. And what we'll have a discussion, a parliamentary discussion about what can we do about our media here instead of giving them money. Is there other things that we can do for them to be more independent? So that will be our discussion on media. But yes, I want media to be strong and independent. And you have media that are promoting some point of view, and that's okay. We need to have discussion. And other media that are promoting with their editorial board other point of view, and that's okay. Let's have a discussion in between Canadians.
I think as we pass the mic over to Bob Hepburn, I'm going to remind everybody that we're here at the Star with the leader of the People's Party of Canada. Maxime Bernier is part of a series of discussions with party leaders during the election campaign. Bob.
I'm Bob Hepburn. I write a column at the Star. A couple things. The fence. Could you explain to us what you're talking about vis-a-vis a fence?
Oh, it's a fence that will be at the Roxham Road instead of our RCMP officer being there and helping people to cross our border illegally. I want them to be on the other part of the fence and saying, you want to come to Canada, you will come, but there's an official port of entry over there, and use the official port of entry. And we have fence in some places across our border. It's not a wall, it's a fence. It's not all across the country, it's just at the Roxham Road, and that will give the right signal to the international community that we are serious for the respect of our borders, and we are serious to help the real refugees and not these ones that are crossing illegally our borders. So yes, we'll be very Canadians. Our officer or CMP officer would be there and telling them, you just have to walk a little bit over there and you'll be able to cross our border, an official point of entry like everybody.
There's a lot of crossings in Manitoba.
Yeah.
Would you propose putting up a fence there too?
If we need, but I think the big problem is in Quebec. If we need to have one over there, we will. Yeah.
Okay. The Quebec religious symbols policy. Could you explain to Canadians outside of Quebec whether their own provinces, Ontario or Alberta or anywhere else, should adopt the same sort of policies?
But that will be their decision.
What would you advise them?
I don't have to advise anybody on provincial matters. It's a provincial jurisdiction, and as you know, in our party, we respect the Constitution. So Quebec used that clause in the Constitution, the non-ascending clauses, and that it is at their own risk. And we will see in the next election what Quebecers will do with that. But it's in the Constitution, and when politicians are using that, it's risky for them. So I don't have to advise any province what to do. But for us, at the federal level, we won't have that discussion.
But do you personally support this?
It's not important if I'm personally supporting that.
It is that you're running as an MP?
Yeah, I'm running as an MP, and I don't want to be the Premier of Quebec. I want to be the Prime Minister of Canada. And I'm just telling you that I won't bring that bill in Canada.
Okay. Many people, we've had some correspondence from readers before you came here, criticizing us for inviting what they call a white supremacist. Or, seriously, I can show you the emails.
No, I believe you, but that's crazy.
Or they brand you as Mad Max.
Yeah, I'm mad about what's happening in this country, you're right.
How do you respond to them?
But first of all, yes, Mad Max, I'm mad. I'm mad about the deficit that we're having. I'm mad for the future generation that they will have to pay this deficit. As you know, the deficit of today are the taxes of tomorrow. So I'm mad that we have a federal government that don't want to have any discussion about immigration. Absolutely. But I'm pleased. I'm pleased that you decided to invite me because it's a democratic debate. I'm pleased that the Mr. Johnson, the commissioner, invite us. We represent some Canadians that are sharing our views. Like I said, 49% of Canadians want to have fewer immigrants. We're the only ones speaking about that. About 30% of Canadians don't believe in the climate change emergency. So we are a voice for these people. So I'm very pleased that you decided to invite me, and I'm very pleased to be with you and to have that discussion. I understand that we don't have the same point of view, but that's okay. That's the democracy. I'm there to debate. I'm not there to buy votes, like I said. If you like what I'm saying, vote for me, please. If not, don't vote for me. That's it. That's all. There's other political party. You won't hear a politician speaking like that. That's why there's no political correctness for us. I'm speaking about what I believe it's right, and I believe that when you speak about individual freedom, a smaller government, and more personal responsibility, that these principles are the basics of the Western civilization. I believe that I have the best ideas, and that's why I want to debate. That's why I'm in politics. Maybe you don't believe that. That's okay. But I'm doing politics based on ideas and freedom and passion and conviction, and that's what I like. So for your viewers that I'm asking them to read our platform, and they won't see anything against Canadian values in our platform. It's all based on a strong principle. And actually, we're the only party with a strong platform. Our platform, and thank you, you've read it, it's 2 pages on every subject. It's not a slogan, what I'm saying. It's not a buzzword. Go on the website of the Conservative Party of Canada or the Liberal Party of Canada. Try to find that platform. It will be 1 paragraph. I would do that, 1 paragraph. For us, we have the issue, the facts, and our solution. And I think people appreciate that. That's risky to do that, but that's the only way for us to do politics.
Susan?
Susan Delacourt, Ottawa Bureau Chief. My questions are going to be more about people, if that's not too... some of my colleagues have alluded to this. A lot of people in Canada who like Donald Trump, like you. How are you different from Donald Trump, and how are you the same?
First of all, if you read our platform, I think I'm very different. I'm saying the same thing for the last 12 years. If you look at my speeches that I delivered a couple of years ago, it's the same on a lot of issues, and I think people appreciate that. They appreciate the authenticity of our platform and the way that I'm doing politics. So I don't try the politician that I have a lot of admiration for. It was Margaret Thatcher. And if you want to compare me with a politician, I will use Margaret Thatcher. She was strong. She was a real free market politician. She spoke against socialism in UK when it was at the peak. And she said also she didn't like the word consensus in politics. She likes conviction. And I agree with her. When you try, I don't want to do any consensus with our values and our principle. You must speak about your conviction. And my job as a politician is to try to convince more Canadians that I have the right ideas. And so I'm not looking at Donald Trump for an idol or a model. I'm looking at Margaret Thatcher.
What's wrong with Donald Trump?
I don't know what's wrong with Donald Trump.
In your mind, in your view, why don't you want to be compared to him?
I don't have time to look at what Donald Trump is doing every day. What I can tell you, he was right on one thing. When we had the free trade agreement with the negotiation in the free trade agreement, he was asking the federal government to abolish the cartel in milk, dairy, and eggs. And I wrote about it, and I said, that's the only position. And we didn't have the best deal because of that, because of the Trudeau government and the Conservative and all the other political parties decided to keep that cartel for 19,000 producer, 10% of the producer farmers in Canada that are under that system. I think he was right at that time when he asked Canada must abolish that system. It's unfair. It was unfair for his dairy producer, but it's unfair also for a dairy producer here in our population.
Can I squeeze in one more domestic question?
Yeah.
Who do you think is your biggest opponent in this election, Trudeau or Scheer? And what do you, relatedly then, what do you know about Mr. Scheer from running against him for leadership that is informing your campaign?
Yeah. First of all, both of them. If you look,
you have to pick one.
Both of them, if you look at my platform, and their platform is the same. On immigration, they're the same. On the cartel, they're the same. On foreign aids, they're the same. On tax reform, they're the same. On free speech, they're the same. I have a policy on free speech. On the pipelines, they're the same. I'm the only one who's going to use the Constitution, and yes, use the Constitution, the Section 9210, to be sure that we'll be able to buy pipeline in this country. And they're not saying that. On equalization, they're the same. I'm the only one who will change the equalization formula for being, listen to me, less generous. And yes, I'm saying that. And I said that in French in Quebec and in New Brunswick, actually, I said that. And when I said that, the journalist from CBC said, Mr. Bernier, you're in New Brunswick and you're speaking about against the equalization formula to be less generous? I said, yes. Do you know that at a provincial level, 60% of our budget is coming from equalization money? So you're saying to our people here that you're going to cut their provincial budget by 60% and you want to have some support? I said, yes. I said, yes, we'll do that on a transition period because it's unfair policy. We need to give the right incentive to every province to develop their own natural resources. And right with that formula, they don't have these incentives. And actually, I said also at the same interview that their new premier said the same thing, that the federal government must be less generous. So he is a very courageous politician. So on all these issues, they're the same. And it's so important for the future of this country. Equalization, when you have 25% of the population in Alberta that is speaking about separation. I'm coming from Quebec. I know what it is, separation. Our second sport is, as you know, referendum, hockey and referendum. So when they're speaking about that in Alberta, you must answer that. You must answer their request. You must listen to that. And I'm doing that. And doing that, let's build pipelines by the private sector, and also changing the equalization formula. So I think we have the right policies for every region of this country, and so that's why Andrew Scheer and Justin Trudeau are the same. And the second part of your question was
well, first of all, Andrew Scheer beat you for the leadership.
Oh yeah. I like that question though. Thank you for asking.
Why do you think he defeated you?
Because
go ahead.
Because first of all, 51-49, and
I was there.
Yeah, I can tell you that I was relieved. That was my sentiment that night. I was relieved 51-49. Why? Because I was the candidate with bold reform, and a lot of bold reform based on free market principles. But I didn't have the support of the caucus. Only 5 MPs, including myself, 5 MPs supported me on 99 conservative MPs. So I knew that winning with 51-49, that I wouldn't have been able to do all the reform, and I know that I would have been in a position to do some compromise with my principle. And like I said in the beginning, I don't want to do compromise on my principle. So I was relieved because I knew that I didn't have the support of the caucus, and it would have been very difficult for me to have their support without any compromise. That was my sentiment the night of that. And after that, what I tried to do, I tried to work with him. And because 49% of the membership of the Conservative Party of Canada voted for our ideas and the bold reform, but he decided not to take any of our reform, and so he told publicly in last August, he said publicly that I'm not representing the party and I'm speaking for myself when I'm speaking about the reform. So I had a choice to do. I decided to quit that party, and I think that was the right decision. And creating the People's Party, I think for me, that's my best time in politics. I like what I'm doing, and we have a lot of support. So speaking about Andrew Scheer, during the campaign, I signed a pledge to balance the budget in 2 years. And it was so popular that Andrew Scheer decided to do the same thing. And actually, that was his policy after being the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, that he will balance the budget in 2 years. And he was asking questions every day to Justin Trudeau and telling him, the budget does not balance itself. And now he changed his position during the election, and he said, no, I won't be able to balance the budget in 4 years. It's too complicated. I don't have the courage to do all the cuts that need to be done. And I will be like Justin Trudeau. I will spend and spend and spend, and maybe I will balance the budget in 5 years. But the election is not for the 5 years, it's for 4 years. So he won't balance the budget. So what he's doing right now, Andrew Scheer, I think, is like Justin Trudeau. The Conservative Party under Andrew Scheer, it is not the Conservative Party under Stephen Harper. Andrew Scheer said, I think he said that with the with I think it was the Sun, the Toronto Sun, last November, that under his leadership, the Conservative Party of Canada is a centrist, pragmatic, political party with lots of ideas for a lot of people. Translation, I don't have any vision for this country. I don't have any principle. Tell me what you want to hear and I will repeat it. And I hope that you're going to vote for me. So no principle, no conviction, and he's splitting the vote right now. His goal is to split the liberal votes. So that's why, for me, they're all the same. And at the debate, I will ask questions to both of them.
One tiny question more. Do you believe, as the Liberals allege, that he won the leadership and continues to profit from the support of anti-abortion groups and social conservatives?
Andrew Scheer?
Yes.
But I believe that, he had a lot of support for the social conservative, yes, and he had a lot of support also from the dairy producer. Actually, all the dairy producers across the country, they said we are voting for our own interests, and that's okay. And we don't want Bernie there. So who's able to beat Bernie? That's Andrew Scheer. So yes, he had a lot of support of these people. But for me, it's past. I don't want to go back there, and I just want to let you know that this party, it's for the short term and the long term also. And I can tell you that we will never merge with the Conservative Party of Canada, and this party is there to stay with Maxime Bernier as a leader, and we'll see what will happen in the near future.
I hear that to say you wouldn't prop him up in a minority then.
I won't be part of a coalition government. I won't be part of a coalition government, but I will vote on our values, and I will evaluate their legislation I will deal day to day with them, but I don't want to be part of a coalition government. And I believe that a coalition government, it is okay in our democracy. It is okay, it's part of the parliamentary system. And so maybe we'll have a minority government, maybe we'll have a majority government, maybe we'll have a coalition government. And I'm okay with all that. But for us, we won't be part of a coalition government, but we will judge a government day by their policies, and we'll vote in line with our principles.
Just to go back finally, we're running down on time. But just to go back on all these values issues, to cut to the chase on it, you talk about diversity being a problem and multiculturalism. You mentioned that, we don't want to get in a situation where we have ghettos. And pointing to Europe and whatnot. And then you talk about the danger of, I think, what you call political Islam. So, people didn't complain about immigration so much when they were coming from countries that they didn't find, or backgrounds that they didn't find alarming. Isn't the concept of dog whistle, and this may be not even a dog whistle, just a whistle. Is it not simply? Are you not simply ringing a bell saying, "Beware Muslims"?
No, absolutely not. We have Muslims that are running for us. Ask Salim Mansour, a university professor. We have a lot of Muslims that are running with us. There's a difference with Muslim and political Islam. There's a huge difference. And ask them, they will tell you. They will tell you the difference. And so no, absolutely not. We are. It's a diverse country. You said in the beginning that I'm against diversity. I'm not against diversity. I'm against more and more and more diversity. This country is diverse, and I'm proud. We built this country together. Francophone, Anglophone, First Nation, Inuit, and after that, immigrants from Europe, immigrants from Africa, immigrants from India. And yes, we want immigrants coming from all over the world, and they will come. But we want them to come here and to fulfill our economic needs.
I think we have a final question from a reader. Do we?
It kind of piggybacks on what you were saying. From Jen Harmer, Quebec's government has recently banned religious symbols for those working in the public service. Is this something you would like to see extended to federal public service?
No.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in? Carrie?
Carrie
Would be our
Glasgow,
final
the
question.
Editorial board. This kind of goes on what we've been talking about. You talk about these face-to-face interviews with immigrants. What's an example of kind of a question and answer session that in your mind makes you ineligible to come to Canada?
Yeah, first of all, it's not new. We had face-to-face interview before in the past, and I just want to go there, what we did in the past that was very successful. What would be the kind of interview? Do you know that in Saint-Georges-de-Beauce there's a lot of job opportunities over there? Do you think that you want to move there? Do you know that in Toronto we need to have workers like that? So have a discussion about what they want to do. And do you know that in Canada we have a separation of the state and the region? Do you know that men and women are equal in this country under the law? And in fact, so let's have this kind of discussion. I don't know what would be, but I can trust the civil servant in Ottawa that they did that in the past. They will ask the same kind of question for the future also.
But you're suggesting kind of like hard lines that if you answer yes or no to something, presuming people would even tell the truth, that would mean you can't come to Canada anymore.
No, people they will say what they want to say, and I hope they won't lie. But you know, the interview is not the only thing that will on which the immigration official will take their decision. It's part of the process. There's a point process, and that's why we want to review the point process. We want to be sure that if you speak English or French, you'll have a little bit more points. So it's a big reform altogether. So in the interview, we won't dictate. We, the politician, won't dictate what to say. And what kind of conversation. I think they're better than myself, and they did that in the past, the bureaucrats in Ottawa, and I'll let them have the discussion with the newcomers.
I guess it sort of seems like you want it both ways. You're sort of pitching this as a thing to your supporters, and that we're going to keep out people that you may not want, and then. But that's a way.
But that's
no. It doesn't really mean that much.
No. It's important. It's part of our policy. It's important to have a face-to-face interview, and I'm not going back on that. And in that discussion, I don't know what would be the price. You're asking me the question. What would be the questions? I don't know what would be the question. I know I want the question on jobs opportunity. I want questions on values. That's it.
But your platform talks about specific questions to assess the extent to which they align with Canadian values. So, yeah. I mean, that suggests you have a series of questions that say these are Canadian values. If you say yes or no, you're allowed in. If you don't,
we'll have a discussion. We'll have a discussion with Canadians about that. That would be part. That will be open, and we'll have that discussion. What would be the question? I don't know, but I just want to be sure that people understand. We want question about job opportunities and about their values. Yes, specific question. What would be the specific question? How many specific question? I don't know. I'm not there now.
On that note, thanks so much for coming in.
But thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to thank you very much also because I think it's good for your readers. It's good for Canadians that they can hear another point of view and they can judge the leader of the People's Party by themselves. So thank you very much.
Thank you.